Hello Duelist, Tombox here. In this video, I will be going over the two structure decks coming to TCG, Masters of Pendulum and the Emperor of Darkness. Now these two structure decks are actually coming out very close to each other, one in December and the other in January. That's kind of unheard of for structure decks because they usually come out within 3 to 6 months apart. So this is news to us, but then we're kind of catching up to OCG in that sense. Now, these structure decks are highly competitive, and a lot of people regard these stuff built from these structure decks as tier 1 decks. So I kind of want to touch up on what's it like to have a cheaper meta compared to what we have now, which would be Necros, Cleese, Shaddoll's, BA, yada yada yada. All these decks are very strong, but they're all bought from the core set or some other set. Now anyways, on to Masters of Pendulum. Of course, this is the Pendulum support deck. It supports actually 3 different archetypes. It gives support to the Performables through Skullcrobat Joker. Skullcrobat Joker is honestly Stratos. It's Stratos that searches for Performables, Odd Eyes, and Magician cards. And then, of course, there are Pendulum cards that you can only search for. And yeah, it's the search all. 1800 beat stick, same stats as Stratos, more or less. And then, yeah, there you go. Now for the Magicians, here's big news from Magician. Insight Magician, renamed to Wisdom Eye Magicians, will be included in the structure deck. That's really, really awesome for us because this was an OCG exclusive. A lot of us kind of anticipated it would be like one of the OCG exclusive cards, or maybe it'll be reprinted in an OCG like catch-up set. But no, we're getting in a structure deck, and that's awesome. So you don't have to spend extra money to acquire this card. Now, Insight Magician aside, we get the 4 Dragon Magician Pendulum monsters. So Dragon Pit, Dragon Pulse, Noble Dragon, and I guess Oath Dragon. I guess Oath Dragon's Dragon Peasant? Sure, why not? But yeah, that's really good. These cards are really good, and Dragon Pit is really awesome. It's a vanilla pendulum, has the ability to pop spells and traps as long as you have another magician on the other side of the scale, and you have to discard 1. But the scale number is 8. There's not a lot of cards with scale 8. I actually looked it up, and this is one of the most generic scale 8s that we can have in this game, so I'm pretty happy about this. Pretty much that gives a lot of support to a lot of other decks that want to play Pendulum, and you can actually use bigger monsters. Cards like Apex Avian is now viable, and that's why Apex Avian has kind of skyrocketed in price. The other cards that support Odd Eyes. Now, Odd Eyes, you get Skyark. Now, talking about Skyark, Skyark protects your Pendulum scale, which is very, very nice. You can't target it as long as Skyark's on the field. Now, not only that, Skyark can destroy one of your own cards to search an Odd Eyes card out of your deck. I guess it's decent, but then you probably need a little more support to actually make Odd Eyes a little more viable in the competitive setting. Now the other 2 cards that you would get for Odd Eyes would be Odd Eyes Meteor Dragon and Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon. This is the Xyz and the Synchro, the cover cards. They have effects to summon out cards. I don't want to go into too much detail. You guys can look up their effects. Now, another really hyped card in this deck is Pendulum Call. It searches 2, not 1, but 2 magicians with different names that are Pendulum monsters out from the deck. And not only that, until the end of your opponent's turn, your Pendulum scale cannot be destroyed by card effects, even your own, which, in other words, don't search Insight for most cases. But anyways, like a double search giving you a full scale, that's pretty impressive, and it can't be blown up by an MST or Wavering Eyes, so that's really, really good. One additional thing that I want to talk about in structure decks is that they usually have one really expensive reprint, and that expensive reprint is Summoner's Art. Summoner's Art right now, the rare or the super rare, is around $18 to $20 online. That's crazy. And now it's a confirmed reprint as a common in this, I guess, the structure deck, so it's probably gonna tank quite a bit. If you want super rares, by all means pick those up. They're from Astral Pack, so I guess they kind of retain some value at the very least. But the rares, I think they're not gonna do so well. Now about structure decks, I kind of sort them into 2 categories. A supportive structure deck, where even if you buy 3 of it, you still need other cards to actually make it a very competitive deck. Or a solo deck, where pretty much you can look at Dark Worlds, Lightsworn, and like things like pretty much just good standalone. You don't really need stuff from like other sets like Hidden Arsenal or any other places. But This structure deck I would categorize under the supportive structure deck, mainly because there's a lot of good cards from the main sets that actually boosts it. Like from core, like Clash of Rebellions, you can get the Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon. That's a really good Xyz to actually use. And you also get Odd Eyes Rebellion Dragon. That also gives you a little more support. And these the Xiang magicians, Zhangqi and Zhang Shen, they were also very good to support in this deck. But more importantly, Dimensions of Chaos gives this deck a lot of support. It gives you the Odd Eyes Fusion, which you can search with Sky Arc, and also gives you the Odd Eyes Vortex Dragon, which gives you another negation if you already run Apex Avian. That's really, really good. And not only that, it kind of synergizes with your Odd Eyes Absolute Dragon too, which is actually really, really amazing. Now in Dimensions of Chaos, Magispectors are also being released in it, and they actually work very well with Magicians. If you've seen some of the OCG lists, a lot of them back then also had Magician Magispectors just because they go hand in hand more or less. They have a lot of search effects, kind of like the base effects of all the Magispectors, which are search effects. So the whole deck is very, very consistent overall. And the high scales of the Magician archetype mixed with the Magispectors gives them like bigger Pendulum summons, because now they can actually get the Unicorn for free. Now for Emperor of Darkness, this is Monarch's 2.0. They already had a structure deck before from the, I guess, the Dark Emperor, but they kind of removed all the Monarchs in the TCG version of it, which kind of really sucked. But this time, I guess we kind of get all the Monarchs, but we don't get the mega versions of them. So as a deck, I believe this to be one of those solo decks. You don't need an extra deck, which is very nice. You can buy 3 of this, maybe add a couple Mega Kaias, get a couple Fiends, like Vanity's Fiends, which were reprinted. Same with Majesty's Fiend, those are also reprinted. That's really nice. Good timing. This deck is very, very strong. I played it on Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro. I started a new account. Within a couple days, I climbed to 1900s very, very easily. The deck is honestly very, very strong. Now, a couple key cards to keep in mind why this deck is so strong. So this structure deck offers Monarchs a new tribute engine, as well as a draw engine and a search engine. Yeah, that pretty much kind of sums it up. Erebus, the Netherworld Monarch, is the cover card, and honestly is one of the best Monarchs in the game, I think, especially for this deck anyway. A lot of other decks that aren't Monarch-centric cannot use this because it requires you to run the Monarch spells traps in the deck. Now, to get off his effect, he is technically a Mega Monarch, so you can tribute summon him with 2 tributes, or you can tribute summon him with 1 tribute summon monster. Yes, kind of wordy there. His effect is send 2 Monarch spell traps to the graveyard, and then spin 1 card from your opponent's hand, field, or graveyard back into the deck. And it does not target, so it makes Cosmos card, like the Cosmos big ships, it's a really good counter to those. And the new tribute engine, the Heaven Knight and Netherworld Knight, so Idea and Eidos. So Idea and Eidos both are low-level monsters. One is like a tour guide with a graveyard effect, and the other is like Mizuki with a summon effect. Yeah, let's put it that way. So Idea summons out Eidos from the deck. Eidos' effect is when he's summoned, you get 1 additional tribute summon. So basically, summon Idea, you get Eidos. Eidos, more or less, has the ability to give you a tribute summon with your big guys. Simple as that. Now in the graveyard, when Idea hits the grave, he adds 1 of your banished Monarch spell traps back to your hand. And there's a lot of stuff that synergizes with that. As for Eidos, you can banish him from the graveyard to activate its effect, and then he will summon out, I guess, another 800 attack and 1000 defense monster onto the field, which will be Idea. And Idea will summon another Eidos from the deck. So in other words, you get basically a free tribute summon on top of your regular normal summon if you haven't normal summoned that turn already. Of course, Idea being a level 1 warrior, you can use Rhoda to search out Idea, which is, I guess, really good. Now, in terms of the draw engine, you have Pantheism of the Monarchs. This is honestly a very, very disgusting draw card that doubles as a search card. If you remember one of the spellbook cards, Spellbook Library, I believe, you kind of choose one of your opponent's card and add it to their hand. It has that effect, but on top of that, it has the draw effect, where you discard another Monarch spell trap to the graveyard, and then you can draw 2 cards. And then in the graveyard, you can activate that by banishing itself, and then you pick 3 cards from your deck, and then your opponent chooses one and adds it to your hand. Now, if you have Grudge of the Monarchs, you don't really care what they really choose because you honestly just added yourself a Rhoda spell into your hand. Pantheism of the Monarchs is basically Google for Monarchs. It's the best search engine you'll ever have, and it's also like the best draw engine too, so what more would you ask for? Like, it's 2 cards in one. Very, very consistent. You can actually run really low on cards really fast. Another card that's worth mentioning in this structure deck would be the new trap for the Monarchs. The Prime Monarch, I think that's the TCG name for it. The Prime Monarch, on the field, it just recycles your spells and traps back. In the graveyard, on the other hand, it's really amazing. Banish one of your Monarch spell traps, and then special summon it itself out onto the field in defense mode. It has 1000 attack, 2400 defense, and it is not a spell card. So what happens is, if you Book of Moon this card, it will face down rather than going back to the spell and trap zone, and your opponent cannot use MST to pop this card. One more card that I have to mention is Aether, which is the Heavens Monarch. Now, Aether was I guess a promo card in the OCG structure deck. That's why I'm not sure it's going to be a guaranteed card. Most likely, I think they should include it. I mean, it's the hand trap Monarch, where you can summon it on your opponent's turn without the escalation trap. But not only does it do that, it also recruits another Monarch out of the deck. It's literally a tribute tour guide that drops another 28 beat stick, and you can use it to dodge like targeting effects. Like, it's a really good Monarch to have in your hand during your opponent's turn. Alright guys, that's all I want to cover about these 2 structure decks, but before I go, I kind of want to ask you this question. You guys can give me your opinion down in the comments below. Do you guys like a really expensive meta, or do you guys like a cheaper meta where everyone has access to the cards? So a more expensive meta would be like what we are at now, like people playing Necros, Shaddolls, like Satella Knights, Cleese, like BA, Cosmos, all the big decks that cost a lot to actually play? Or do you actually like everyone having like the same level in terms of deck relevance? Like everyone playing a tier 1 deck, for instance. Like, what do you think about that? Like, my personal opinion, playing a cheaper meta will reflect your skills more because everyone has the same access to cards, but then you may lose to luck sacking a little more, whereas a more expensive meta, you're more likely going to win against anyone that's not meta relevant or is not very good. But anyways, let me know down in the comments below. So if you guys like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more videos from MST.TV, of course, hit the subscribe button. And as always, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.